So Carney, the creepy clown, is about to announce his budget tomorrow. And serious question for you liberal Canadians who have done absolutely everything in your power to destroy this country over the past decade. What has Mark Carney exactly done in the past 7 months? He talked a big game during the election about how he was this master economist who was going to be able to negotiate with Trump, get trade deals done, get our tariffs down, move at light speed to get major infrastructure projects done. He spoke a very big game. But now that he's been prime minister, and he didn't just start as prime minister, he's now been prime minister for 7 months. What exactly, liberal Canadians, has Mark Carney done to improve this country? Because the vast majority of countries have gotten their tariffs down substantially. The EU got their tariffs down to 15%. Many countries got their tariffs down to 0. Canada has maintained tariffs at 35%, and then Ford ran that incredibly stupid ad that Carney approved antagonizing Trump, and our tariffs are still at 45% on major industries across Canada. $63 billion of investment have left this country. In Carney's first quarter, GDP fell 1.6%. GDP per capita has now fallen 6 quarters in a row in Canada. A record over 2 million Canadians are using food banks. What exactly are Mark Carney's accomplishments during his first 7 months as Prime Minister of Canada? Because he's announced new bureaucracies. He's talked about how there's going to be a new bureaucracy that's going to set up at light speed these new projects. But that's not what his rhetoric was during the run-up to the election. He talked about how he was going to hit the ground running and get these major infrastructure projects off the ground. We still have not seen anything except for the announcement of a new major projects team. By the way, a buddy of Mark Carney's is making about $700,000 a year, about double what the PM makes to lead this team. But in terms of actual projects getting off the ground, it's been nothing. Trudeau was disastrous for the Canadian economy during his 10 years as Prime Minister, and the Canadian economy has undoubtedly gotten worse in the past 7 months. We have a 7.1% unemployment rate, the second highest in the G7. And if you take into account the number of Canadians who have actually quit looking for jobs, most economists believe it's more like between 10 and 11%. We have a 22% youth male unemployment rate. That's shocking. To justify bringing in another 1.5 million immigrants into the country when 1 in 4 Canadian male youth are unemployed is traitorous, in my opinion. It's truly unbelievable. Carney has not done... List me the major projects. Sure, he's gone around the world. He's traveled a hell of a lot. For a guy who's so concerned with the climate, he sure jumps on a jet about more than anybody I've ever seen in my life. But if you actually look into what he's gotten done on all of these international trips he's gone on, it's extremely little for Canada. Now, his own personal assets have exploded in value. Brookfield Asset Management is up over 45% since he was elected. Of the 600 investments he has, they're up an average of something like 37%. So for Mark Carney personally, he's made a hell of a lot of money since he was elected as Prime Minister. But looking at it for unbiased, looking at the Canadian economy since Carney was elected, nobody with a straight face can argue that Canada's economy has become stronger. As I said, he spoke a big game about being able to negotiate with Trump, but then all he's done is he kisses his ass, he kisses Trump's ass when he sees him in person, and then he approaches it in the most stupid way possible. When he's not in front of him, he antagonizes them. Anybody who can rub 2 brain cells together knows the way to negotiate with Trump is not to antagonize him. That is the exact opposite approach you want to take. You want to let him know how you can mutually benefit from a partnership, how the U.S. needs Canadian steel, the U.S. needs Canadian aluminum. How can we help the United States out, rather than this stupid antagonistic, playing an out of context Ronald Reagan quote from the 1970s. It's clearly not going to work with Trump, and it hurts Canadian business leaders. It almost makes you think that Carney is intentionally sabotaging Canadian businesses because nefarious globalist actors, the guy did spend his entire career in service of the WF, Davos, and Brookfield Asset Management before he was elected Prime Minister. They don't care about Canada. They could give two shits about your average Canadian middle or lower class citizen. They're worried about their global investments. And in terms of global investment, it's fantastic. Carney went on and on about how China was our main geopolitical threat. Now, all of a sudden, he's in Asia announcing these $5 trillion deals. It really makes you think. Brookfield Asset Management and China had an incredibly close relationship. Is he intentionally sabotaging trade talks with the US so that he can cozy up and make a hell of a lot of money partnering with China? It's quite strange. He criticized the CCP incessantly during the run-up to the election, and now all of a sudden they're a necessary trade partner that's going to be great for Canada. And I don't see him criticizing at all the Chinese-style credit score they have, where if your so-called social credit in China goes below a certain level, you're essentially guaranteed to live in poverty. No, it seems as though Carney's totally on board with this type of society where the government gets to determine what type of housing you have, total surveillance over you, introducing bills like Bill C8, Bill C9, which are the most aggressive affronts to free speech in Canadian history, giving the Canadian government the ability to just shut off your internet, call the service provider and say cut his internet, put you in jail for life for so-called hate speech, which they define as fomentation of detestation and vilification. This guy, the closer you look into Carney, he is not working on behalf of Canadian citizens. His primary concern is not with how normal Canadians are doing. It's blatantly apparent. His interest is Brookfield Asset Management, the WF Davos, making his pocketbook that much larger, and damn the Canadian citizens. As he said in his run-up to this budget, he said Canadians are going to have to be ready to tighten their pocketbook, pull their bootstraps up. Are you kidding me? This guy who jets around the world, this bug-eyed, dead-eyed creep, telling us that we need to tighten our bootstraps. I thought you were a chief economic advisor to Trudeau. Have you not looked at how the Canadian economy has done under the past decade of your woke ideology, green initiative BS, green grift BS that gets you and your buddies at Brookfield, as you even admitted yourself, rich as hell, while the rest of Canadians struggle? No, if anybody has to fucking tighten their bootstraps, it's you creep. You're making money hand over fist off of these ridiculous green initiative policies that refuse to export Canadian LNG, refuse to export Canadian oil, when Japan, China, Germany, Olaf Scholz is here begging for our LNG. Canada should be an economic superpower. But due to guys like Mark Carney, we have probably in real life an over 10% unemployment rate, and 1 in 4 young Canadian men are unemployed, which is an absolute disaster. It's such a joke. So yeah, Liberals, I'm just wondering, what exactly has Carney done in the past 7 months to impress you? After 10 years of Trudeau's disaster tenureship that's sending Canada towards closer and closer to being a third world country, what exactly Mark Carney has done? Because by my estimation, he's done absolutely nothing. And we need an election. We need an election yesterday. Please like, share, subscribe, join, become a member, grab some gear, donate. Really appreciate it. Everybody's supports. Thanks so much. And yeah, we need an election. We need an election now in Canada.